And now I'd like to open the meeting to the sharing of testimonies of healing through Christian Science. Jeremy.
I am so grateful for the changes that Christian Science and being a member of this church have made on me. Recently, someone broke into my car, but nothing of value was taken. As I was waiting for the police, I felt such pity for the person that did this, because in that moment, the only way forward they felt they had was to do this. It wasn't very long ago that I saw no way forward except through anger and self-destructive actions. If only they had come into this church. Even my daughter later mentioned that she can see the change in me from being a member of this church, because if this had happened before, I would have freaked out and wanted to punch someone. Yet now I was calm and able to feel for this person's need. I'm so grateful for my practitioner's support during this time. She emphasized the need to watch and pray and work for the security of the church and our homes, cars, and communities, and that, as Mrs. Eddy wrote on page 232 of Science and Health, security for the claims of harmonious and eternal being is found only in divine science. I know that the changes that have occurred to me are not because of me. I can take no credit for them. I had decades to figure this out on my own, and I didn't. However, once I came to this church and to Christian Science, the changes just naturally took place. It is such a blessing to be a member of this church. With all the books, lessons, services, discussions, and practitioner support that we have access to, there's no opportunity for anything other than an increased closeness to God. And that is why I now pray for this person and all who see no way forward and know that they will hear God's voice. That we have Christian Science is proof He doesn't want us to be lost. And as a member here, it's a wonderful honor to be able to help bring that blessing to more of mankind. I'm so grateful that God has given me this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Karen from Kansas, go ahead.
Okay. I was just wanting to thank all the Christian Science practitioners. Where would we be without them? We would be just another church without any healing taking place. And Mrs. Eddy writes under the chapter Atonement and Eucharist, Christians claim to be His followers, but do they follow Him in the way that He commanded? Hear these imperative commands. Be ye therefore perfect, even as your Father, which is in heaven, is perfect. Go ye into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature. Heal the sick. I also want to express my thanks to all the members of the Plainfield Church for helping us all to reach the high goal of healing. And thank you so much for the music and the readings tonight.
Thank you. Nancy from New Jersey, go ahead.
Hi. I would like to first of all express my gratitude for the very powerful and beautiful readings this evening, and that I have an opportunity to share with you an experience that I had just last week. I had taken the day off from work thinking I was going to get a million things done, and I had just parked and was ready to go for my first errand when my cell phone rang. And when I answered, it was one of my dear children. As soon as she heard my voice, she started sobbing and was in great distress regarding a situation going on in her marriage. I asked her to just please be still and listen to me for just a second. She is not in Christian Science yet. And I asked her to just know that no matter what seemed to be going on around her, that God loved her dearly, and no matter what, just to hold on to that. I told her I had been praying for her situation and that I knew right now that love was what was needed. And she asked if I would continue to pray, and I said that I would. I hung up the phone, and I immediately fell apart. The belief of fear and the what-ifs and I should have took over, and I really worked myself up into the frenzy that we spoke about at the round table on Sunday. I couldn't finish a prayer or a thought, and I knew I really needed help myself. I got home as quickly as I could and called a practitioner who very firmly and very lovingly told me exactly what I needed to hear. I have been carrying around personal sense for a very long time, thinking that I was the fixer of everything. And I was told to step back and just turn her over to God, this child that I thought that I owned, how silly, that she was God's child and God was speaking to her. I was also given so many beautiful resources to work with, things that I had never read before, attending Plainfield. And I immediately started studying and reading and learning, and the truth became clearer and clearer to me that God was in control. I was able to get a restful sleep, and in the morning I didn't wake up with my usual fear, what's happening now. I knew that I could trust God, that God alone was in control, and regardless of the outcome, He was taking care of all of His children. This freedom from this personal sense, I just cannot tell you how grateful that it is gone. The truths that I was given to study did truly set me free, and for that I am so very grateful. And I just want to take one more second and just express the gratitude for the wonderful website. It is filled with information and inspiration, and really, I can't wait till lunchtime to get out in my car and get on my phone and get on the website and just see what I can find. So thank you all very much.
Thank you. Linda from Pennsylvania, go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening. Tonight I want to express my gratitude specifically for the Plainfield Bible study classes. For years before I came here, I wanted so deeply to participate in some kind of structured Bible study. I had tried various avenues, from small groups to online class and friends, and even self-study. Never in my dreams had I ever known that my prayer would lead me to a small independent Christian Science church in New Jersey. On October 3rd this year, during a discussion on Moses, there was a moral message or a warning about being hard-hearted that came up, which I am so thankful for. In a nutshell, we were told that we needed to be alert to this condition of thought that is a deliberate, determined will that doesn't yield to God's will, to human will, thinking that maybe this time I will get away with it, my willful finding ways to justify my willful acts, that maybe this isn't so bad, and then before you know it, you persist in it, and then pride might even keep you from admitting your mistakes. This is something I have persisted in, and sometimes it's small negative thinking, but it was always wrong. And the antidote that they talked about was the meekness, this path to God and submitting to God's will. The purpose is to get our heart right before God. This really opened my eyes to be more alert, because some things seem so harmless, but if it's not good, God's will, it's not a good idea, and it's going against His laws. And we must atone for every wrong deed and thought, and so we might as well get started now and not wait. I'm learning that even to indulge even a little evil takes you away from God, and that's not a good place to be. I'm so grateful for the clear teachings that are boldly taught so that we can recognize and want to do God's will here at the church. And this week's lesson is just absolutely beautiful and follows along this thought of doing right before God. And I'm so grateful, and thank you so much for the beautiful testimonies this evening. Good evening.
Thank you. Joanne from Florida, go ahead.
Thank you. I recently returned home after a 5-week trip, and 2 days after returning home, I felt myself coming down with a cold and a sore throat. So I asked a practitioner for help and was told to handle the belief of disturbance of body and experience, and to know that I was in God's kingdom of heaven and harmony. Well, I went to bed that night, but I woke in the middle of the night feeling nauseous and in pain. And I couldn't go back to sleep or get my peace. And the only thing I was able to read was the church magazine, Love is a Liberator. I was up reading it cover to cover, and after 2 hours I felt well and peaceful and was able to get a good night's sleep. When I awoke, all the symptoms of a cold were gone. I am so grateful for the practitioner's healing work and for the sweet comfort of our church magazine. And I just want to say thank you to all who helped to publish it. And thank you for this service tonight.
Thank you. Chardell from Pennsylvania, go ahead.
Hello. Tonight, I would like to express my gratitude for the lesson sermons, the round table discussions, and the Saturday Bible studies. I am so grateful for what I am learning at Plainfield Christian Science Church, Independent. Each week, new insights come to bless, all because of the workers involved with the Plainfield Church. The way I used to think is changing. I thought I had a pretty good understanding of the story of the prodigal son, but realized this week that the son, before returning to his father, had first turned to human resources. Quote, he joined himself to a citizen of that country, unquote. Well, this was a wake-up call. Hadn't I too done just this? It is a waste of time to turn to anything but God. Thank you all for your tireless work, devotion, and love that help us to become closer to God through a better understanding of science and health and the Scriptures. I also want to say thank you for the beautiful music and, yes, the powerful readings. Thank you all.
Thank you. Florence from Georgia, go ahead.
This is Day. Thank you. I'm grateful for what this church has taught me about the importance of gratitude. I'm finding that it's the greatest healer and the greatest defense against the negative claims that come about each day. I've learned that I can't entertain bad thoughts or feelings and be truly grateful at the same time. And I've been able to overcome and prevent many challenges by simply thanking God over and over for all that He's doing. This reassures me of His presence and His power and the certainty of the loving protection that is always with me and everyone. And I'm so grateful for this and all that we've been given to work with here. Thank you so much for tonight's readings, for all the testimonies, and for tonight's meeting.
Thank you. Gary, go ahead.
We're having a much-needed gentle rain all day today here in New Jersey, and and I'm very grateful for it. And it has it reminded me of one of the many wonderful lessons I've learned here in this church through Christian Science, and that is that God governs the weather just like He governs everything else in His universe. And this was first I guess, brought to my attention a few years ago when New Jersey had a really bad storm. Heavy winds and rain were forecast, and as soon as our teacher, Mrs. Evans, heard that forecast, she asked all the members of our church to pray for the safety of everybody, knowing that God does not bring destructive weather. So we all prayed. And the next day the storm came and went. And there were a few communities around us that had trees come down and were out of electricity for a few hours. But Plainfield and the communities that the members of this church lived in did not have any destruction and did not lose electricity. In fact, when we came to church the next day, the neighborhood that the church is in, you could hardly tell that there was a storm at all. Well, I'm so grateful for God's protection. And I'm grateful for the lesson that was given by our teacher to pray for the weather and to expect God to take care. And since then, we've had other situations where we've prayed and we've seen storms turn 180 degrees and go out to sea and leave us alone. I've seen time and again our prayer for the weather turn bad weather into good weather here when we've needed it. So I'm so grateful for what I'm learning about Christian Science in this church. So grateful for Mary Bakeretti for teaching us that God cares for us and we can expect it. It's great to be here tonight.
Thank you. Dale from Virginia, go ahead.
Thank you. I want to express gratitude for the privilege of working with a practitioner in this church who practices genuine Christian Science. Through her work, I've had many quick and wonderful healings, and some that have taken longer because there were lessons to learn that could only happen with this dedicated work. Errors in thinking had to be rooted out that I didn't even know were there. In this church, we're encouraged to act boldly to glorify God and bless our fellow man. And we're given the tools to do that here. The writings of the early workers and daily accounts of life in Mrs. Eddy's home, which include the watches which we do regularly to bless mankind worldwide. This is a selfless, sharing place, and I am blessed to be here. Thank you so much for the readings and all the testimonies tonight.
Thank you. Florence from Georgia, go ahead.
Thank you. Tonight I'd like to give gratitude for the lasting lesson to lean on God always, to lean on God for direction as to what our work is to do. We've been taught that our work is already established, and I'd like to give gratitude for the resources we have in this church, because in Bicknell Young's 1937, this beautiful statement comes, which went along so really well with something I had to do, that, those last, the fears that used to come about something new that I had to do were trying to come. It says this is on page 2 of his 1937 college. A divine idea carries within itself the power to accomplish the divine purpose, and the responsibility of its unfoldment belongs to divine principle, who cares for each detail of its progressive being. This was just a beautiful reassuring, comforting statement that I used recently, and I've been able to do what I had to do. I am so grateful for the Christ presence each time when we turn to it, which leads us to just the truth we need to help us along. I'm grateful for tonight's readings, very beautiful readings about healing, and for everyone's testimony, and certainly for the meeting as a whole.
Thank you. Craig, go ahead.
Thanks very much for those readings. They were very instructive and reminding that we have work to do, and God has given us a wonderful purpose to be a healer in this world, not just to take for ourselves. I also think for this wonderful lesson, because I felt today particularly, it was like a cocoon of God's protection around me. I've been having to face some thoughts or irritation, but I suspect it was just the praying for the world was needed, and I took it at that. But if I hadn't had the lesson to keep me thinking outward about how God's in control and God's doing this, not I, and God's directing and God's work has to be done, and it wouldn't have happened. I would have drawn into myself and nothing good would have gone on. But it didn't. I prayed that God was doing the work and working through me, and His work was already done, and it turned things totally around. I wasn't, even when I was told to do something better, I felt no offense. There was no person involved here. Just looked at it to figure out how it could be done, and I could see it. But all in all, these lessons and our work help us to really be useful in this world, and I'm sure keep us from many little trip-ups. Thank God for Mary Baker Reddy and all the instruction here.
Thank you. Lillian, go ahead.
I'm so grateful for learning here that God is always caring for us and to take no good for granted. A while ago, I had to meet with a couple of people, and there were no appointments set up. And I kept praying about when to go, and I got the strong thought to go, and I went. Well, the first stop, the person wasn't there, and a coworker said, "Oh, he'll be back in about 15 or 20 minutes." Not a minute later, he walked in. We were able to talk about what we needed to work out, and I was on my way in a very short while. At the second stop, the gal I was supposed to meet was also out, and her boss said, "Oh, she'll be back in about 15 or 20 minutes." So, not even a minute later, she walked in the door. We were able to get together and straighten out everything, and I was on my way in a very short while again. And it's just that God is always there, and we just can't take it for granted. And I just couldn't stop thanking God for taking care for every little detail in our lives. It was no coincidence, and it was not luck. It was totally God working. And again, I'm so grateful. I'm grateful for Christian Science, for Mrs. Eddy for giving her life for this way of life to the world, and we are all blessed by it. I'm grateful God led me here to be a part of this wonderful mission. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Mary, go ahead.
Okay, I'll read tonight from our church bulletin board on the website, the First Maryland. I'm very grateful for the Plainfield Roundtable learning sessions on Sunday mornings. The one yesterday, I took down a whole page of notes about keeping one's spiritual antenna going to hear God warning or leading, the need to handle every small claim of annoyance or disturbance in order to be ready for the larger challenges that will come. Many, many thanks. And then Costa Rica. It is so good to listen to the round table and to the service. Thank you. We are one family helping each other to go higher and higher. And Virginia, I'd like to express gratitude for all the beautiful and heartfelt music in this church. And listening to Faith and Peter's album, Face the Light, I found tears streaming down my face as the healing words touched me right where I am. Thank you so much. And then Florida, thank you for this wonderful lesson sermon on probation after death. It is unfolding truths about life and daily opportunities for progress in understanding God that amazingly I just now am realizing. Thank you, lesson writers, for such a beautiful lesson. And this one is an email from Germany. I am really grateful for the insights gained from working with my Plainfield practitioner and the Saturday Bible lessons, as well as the Sunday roundtable. In my many years of working in Christian Science, I have not quite understood, or I would have had continuous healings and not hit or misses. I was never taught to face evil and see its nothingness. I was taught only that God is love, and that I did not completely understand that at all. So when people told me they needed help, I mistakenly did what I could humanly while reading Science and Health. I did not see the hidden recesses of error, and I did not even take that seriously, as I felt that if God is love, why bother to know anything else? Now I am learning that I can perceive if this is from God or if it is from somewhere else. Since I have been doing watches, I am waking up to this and becoming more and more aware of who I am. I am so grateful to be learning the language of Christian Science as I now am doing, and things are becoming more and more clear. Thank you all so much, and let us share the world of God's creation and wake up continuously and gloriously with each other. And this one from Australia. Nearly 22 years ago, I was given a little book, Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures by Mary Baker Eddy. What a life-changing experience that turned out to be. As I read this book, I found I could not put it down as it revealed and explained life eternal. This little book transformed my life as it has millions of others. Some years earlier, I had an experience of passing on. When I seemingly came back into my body, I realized I had experienced something not of this world, and found I was not able to explain readily what I had experienced. Mrs. Eddy refers to man as God's immortal idea. When I read those lines, I knew that was exactly what I had experienced, and I had found my answer. How fortunate we are to be able to use our understanding of Christian Science to meet all our human needs. Turning to that universal power, omnipotence, we call God, is no longer just faith in something unknown, but the very presence within our being. Dominion over one's thinking, right thinking, is the greatest gift we can have. And to quote Albert Einstein, quote, to think that a woman over 80 years ago discovered the unreality of matter, end quote. Or to put it in today's terms, to think that a woman discovered and explained the science of life, of being, and is still teaching us today through her writings from nearly 150 years ago. For those who have recently discovered Christian Science, you have begun the greatest love affair of your life. I have had many healings in Christian Science in the past, some needing help from practitioners and some without. Recently, I'd had a problem with one of my molars. Whenever I chewed something hard, I would feel acute pain until finally I woke with severe pain during one night. I had previously had problems with abscesses and had lost a couple of teeth as a result. I didn't want this to happen again, so I contacted the practitioner here for help. The pain settled quite quickly, and by the next day had completely subsided. I've had no more trouble since then. But a few days later, I was suddenly overcome with a deep depression that seemingly came out of the blue. I woke from sleep feeling very sad, as if I was grieving over something and couldn't seem to lift my thought above it. So I asked for some more assistance and very quickly snapped out of it. I am very grateful for the practitioner's immediate help and for the opportunity to share my love of Christian Science and the world via this wonderful website. Also, I've included a testimony of my near-death experience. And that one I will read next week. It's quite wonderful. As I was listening to the service tonight, I'm so grateful to hear of how people are using this science. Years ago, I found this poem in an old journal. It's been published in the Healing Thoughts magazine. The author is unknown, but it is really what our church is about in many ways, and it is this. Have you had a kindness shown? Pass it on. 'Twas not given for you alone. Pass it on. Let it travel down the years. Let it wipe another's tears. Till in heaven the deed appears. Pass it on.
Thank you.